They can't feel pain, never sleep, and one even ate a whole airplane. These real people break every rule of the human body. Ashlin Blocker looks like any ordinary girl from Georgia. She laughs, she plays, she grew up going to school like everyone else. But there's one thing about her that's so rare, only a tiny number of people in the world share it. Ashlin cannot feel physical pain. At all. She was born with a condition so unusual, it completely rewrites how we think the human body works. It's called congenital insensitivity to pain. No matter what happens to her, cuts, burns, even bone fractures, Ashlin simply doesn't feel a thing. Now this might sound like a superpower. No pain? That's every kid's dream, right? No need to fear needles, no sore muscles, no injuries holding you back. But the reality of living without pain is much stranger and more complicated. Pain, as awful as it is the body's alarm system. It tells you when something's wrong, when you're pushing too far, when you're in danger. Ashlin didn't get those alerts. When she was a toddler, her parents realized something wasn't right. She once burned her hand on a hot object and didn't even flinch. Another time, she bit through her own tongue and didn't cry. Her condition is so rare that doctors and scientists have studied her for years. Ashlin's nerves still transmit signals like touch and temperature, but the specific ones that carry pain signals are broken. Scientists think that studying Ashlin's DNA might unlock new ways to treat chronic pain for millions of people. There's even hope that one day, her genes could inspire pain-blocking medicines for people who suffer from nerve damage or arthritis. She may not feel pain, but what researchers are learning from her might help ease the suffering of others. Ashlin's condition turns the rules of biology upside down. She's living proof that the human body can still function, almost flawlessly, without one of its most basic survival tools. If Ashlin Blocker's story left you amazed, Joe Cameron might just take things a step further. She's not a child, not someone who had to be watched 24/7. She's a grown woman who spent decades unaware that something about her was very different. Jo didn't just have a high pain threshold, she didn't have one at all. She once injured her hand, smelled the burning flesh, and still didn't realize she was leaning against a scorching oven. The pain just never arrived. Even more surprising, Jo also doesn't experience anxiety. She gets nervous sometimes, but never the racing heart or cold sweat panic that most people feel when something goes wrong. Doctors were baffled. Eventually, genetic testing revealed that Jo has a mutation in a gene now known as FAA-out, a glitch in her body's internal alarm system that dials both pain and stress all the way down. Her wounds heal faster. She needs little recovery time after surgery. And while others around her worry themselves sick, Jo stays strangely calm. She's not emotionless. Jo laughs, jokes, and cares deeply for people around her. But the signals in her body that cause suffering or distress just don't light up. Some researchers now call her condition one of the most promising keys to future pain relief treatments. What's wild is that she never thought of herself as different until much later in life. Jo's not a comic book character or a science experiment. She's a real person whose brain simply works in a way we're only beginning to understand. Now what if your body couldn't feel fear, not pain, not stress, but actual fear itself? That's the case with one of the most studied anonymous patients in neuroscience, known only by her initials, SM. Her real identity is hidden, but what scientists have learned from her is out in the open, and it's jaw-dropping. SM has a rare condition that damaged both sides of a tiny almond-shaped part of her brain called the amygdala. And without it, she just doesn't feel afraid, ever. She's walked through dangerous neighborhoods late at night, stared down venomous snakes, and even had a knife pulled on her once. Her reaction? Curiosity. Not panic, no screaming, just calm and interest. Researchers tried everything to trigger fear, haunted houses, horror movies, even a test that involved breathing carbon dioxide, which usually causes intense panic. SM simply didn't react like the rest of us. Her body stayed cool, her brain didn't sound the alarm. What makes her condition even more fascinating is that she still understands the idea of danger. She knows what fear is logically, but she doesn't feel it. It's like having a fire detector that still looks intact, but it never makes a sound, no matter what's burning. That raises huge questions about how fear shapes our behavior. SM's case proves that fear isn't just emotional, it's chemical, built into the brain's wiring. Without it, she lives in a world where nothing ever feels truly threatening. And yet it's not about being brave. SM isn't reckless on purpose. Her brain just doesn't respond the way most of ours do. It's not fearlessness by choice, it's fearlessness by biology. Which brings us to someone whose brain works in the opposite way. It's wired so differently it makes her see and feel things almost like she's on another frequency entirely. Rosie King doesn't hold back. If something's on her mind, she'll say it. If she thinks differently, she'll show it. And if the world tries to tell her how she should act, she'll probably question it. Rosie has autism, but not the kind you usually see portrayed on TV. Hers comes with a rare combination of traits that make her not only hyper-aware of the world around her, but also almost immune to the unwritten rules of social behavior. She's never felt the pressure to fit in, and that alone sets her apart. As a child, Rosie was overflowing with imagination. While other kids played house or tag, she created entire fantasy worlds, complex, vivid, and full of characters. Her mind didn't just wander, it built entire storylines. But what really caught people's attention was how she seemed unaffected by social filters. She'd ask direct questions, she'd speak up when others hesitated, not out of rudeness, but because the invisible rules most people follow didn't register the same way for her. To Rosie, truth and clarity came first. Over time, what some saw as a flaw became her strength. She's now a public speaker, a writer, and a voice actor. She helped create and write for an animated show designed to help neurodivergent kids feel understood. Rosie doesn't shy away from her differences. She celebrates them. She calls them her superpowers. Her story challenges everything we think we know about communication, emotion, and what it really means to belong. And she shows that not following social boundaries isn't always a weakness, it can be a gift. At first it looked like a rash, then it started spreading. Doctors thought it might be an allergy or maybe a skin reaction, but for Shenina Isim, something much more bizarre was happening. Her hair follicles were producing something no one expected, nail-like structures, tiny, sharp, and fast-growing. Instead of hair, her skin was pushing out keratin the way fingernails grow. It's one of the rarest medical cases ever recorded, and no one saw it coming. It started when she was in college. Her legs began to itch uncontrollably, then came swelling, then patches of hard black spikes began to appear. At first doctors were baffled. They ran test after test and for months no one could figure out what was wrong. Eventually they discovered that Shenina's body was overproducing skin cells, roughly 12 times more than normal. But instead of forming regular skin or hair, those cells were turning into hardened material. In some areas, her body was literally growing thousands of nail-like filaments. There's no clear cause, no genetic map to explain it. She became a medical mystery overnight. But what makes her story even more powerful is how she responded. Instead of hiding from the world, she became an advocate, raising awareness and pushing for research into unexplained skin conditions. She started a foundation and used her experience to help others going through health challenges no one understands. Shenina's story isn't just about her condition, it's about facing something unexplainable and standing tall anyway. Natalie Adler has something so rare, most doctors have never seen a case like it. On some days she wakes up perfectly fine. On others she can't open her eyes at all, for days. It's not blindness in the traditional sense. Her vision works. Her brain knows what's going on, but her eyelids slam shut like steel doors and refuse to budge. Voluntarily or involuntarily, it's as if her body temporarily deletes the command to open her eyes. Doctors eventually gave the condition a name: blepharospasm. In Natalie's case, it's a severe form, far more extreme than the occasional eye twitch. Her muscles contract so tightly around her eyes that she physically can't keep them open. There's no warning. It comes and goes, sometimes lasting for hours, other times stretching across days. One moment she's fully functional, the next she's locked in darkness, waiting for the muscles to relax. She's learned to live with it by adapting in creative ways. She uses audio tools, voice assistants, and routines that help her function, even when sight is off the table. Treatments exist, Botox injections and nerve therapies, but none are permanent. Natalie's life is a constant game of unpredictability. One thing is clear though, she's turned her strange condition into something powerful, using it to advocate for people with invisible disorders. And it makes you wonder, what else is hidden deep in human biology waiting to be revealed? Well, how about an entire village where pain just doesn't seem to exist? In the far north of Sweden, tucked inside the cold, remote forests of Norrbotten County, lies the tiny village of Vitangi. It looks like any quiet Nordic town, peaceful, snowy, and ordinary. But under the surface, there's something extraordinary going on. Multiple people in this village have been found to carry a rare mutation that makes them physically incapable of feeling pain. The condition, known scientifically as HSAN-5, is tied to a mutation in the nerve growth factor beta gene. Sounds complicated, but what it really means is that some folks in Vitangi walk around completely unaware of injuries that would leave others gasping. They can break bones, suffer burns, and not even blink. And it's not isolated to just one person, it runs through multiple generations of a single family. How did such a bizarre genetic glitch become so concentrated here? The answer lies in the town's isolation. For centuries the population remained relatively closed off, and that allowed the rare gene to pass down quietly. What's wild is that many carriers of the mutation didn't know they were different, they just thought they were tougher than others, until researchers finally connected the dots. Today, the Vitangi cases are helping scientists understand pain on a whole new level. It's like nature created a perfect laboratory, hidden away in the frozen north. No sci-fi, no fiction, just real people walking through life with a missing switch most of us rely on daily. It sounds like a party trick gone too far, but Michael Lotito made a career out of doing the impossible, eating metal. Not just a coin or a nail, he once consumed an entire airplane. Yes, a real airplane. His stage name was Monsieur Mange Tout, which translates to Mr. Eat-All, and he absolutely lived up to it. Over his lifetime he ate TVs, bicycles, razor blades and supermarket carts piece by piece. And somehow, it never caused him any serious internal damage. Doctors examined him multiple times. What they found was almost as strange as his diet. Michael had an unusually thick lining in his stomach and intestines, about twice the average thickness. That extra protection allowed him to swallow and digest materials that would tear a normal person apart. He also had powerful digestive acids which helped break down all that metal into something his body could pass. Still, no one could quite explain how he didn't suffer from internal bleeding or poisoning. His meals were planned and careful. He'd break objects down into small bits, mix them with oil or water, and slowly chew through the pieces. It wasn't a stunt. He really lived this way. Over the course of 2 years he finished eating a Cessna 150, seat cushions, engine parts and all. Most people can't stomach undercooked food. Michael could digest handlebars and bolts. Of course he also ate regular food. But that wasn't what made people stop and stare. What made Michael unforgettable was his body's resistance to something that would send anyone else straight to the emergency room. He turned his strange ability into a show that toured the world and left doctors scratching their heads. In a world where the human body is usually fragile, Michael Lotito's was built like a recycling plant, and nobody's found another one like it since. In a small village in India, a boy named Rahul became known for something no other child in his area had ever shown, an almost eerie indifference to pain. While other kids flinched, cried, or ran to their parents after falling, Rahul simply stood up, brushed off the dust and kept playing. Scraped knees, bruises, even deep cuts, it didn't matter. He never cried, never complained. To those around him he looked fearless. In reality he just couldn't feel pain at all. Rahul has a condition called congenital insensitivity to pain, or CIP. His nervous system works in many ways like everyone else's. He can feel touch, pressure, even temperature. But the pathway that carries pain signals to his brain is disconnected. The result? His body gets hurt, but the brain never finds out. It's like having a fire in the house, but no smoke detector to warn you. His parents first realized something was wrong when Rahul bit into his own tongue so hard he bled and didn't even notice. Another time he fractured his ankle but kept running. The danger isn't that he gets injured more often, but that no one knows when it happens. Pain usually teaches children to be cautious. Without it, Rahul had to learn safety through constant observation, not sensation. When Hunter Steinitz was born, doctors didn't expect her to survive past infancy. Her skin was covered in thick, diamond-shaped plates with deep red cracks in between, so tight it pulled her eyelids and lips back, made it difficult to move, and left her entire body exposed and fragile. She had harlequin ichthyosis, one of the rarest and most severe genetic skin conditions known to science. Most people had never seen a case like it, and yet, against all odds, Hunter grew up. Harlequin ichthyosis isn't just dry or flaky skin, it's a condition where the body sheds skin too slowly, causing thick, armor-like buildup all over. For someone like Hunter, staying alive means sticking to a strict routine every single day, long baths to soften the skin, special creams to help it peel off, constant monitoring to avoid infections. Even the slightest change in temperature or humidity can affect her skin dramatically. But here's what's incredible. None of that has stopped her from living a full, bold life. Hunter doesn't hide. She speaks publicly. She acts in plays. She challenges every assumption people make when they see her. The first thing most people notice is her skin. The second, her confidence. Hunter doesn't just live with her condition, she owns it, and her presence is enough to change how people think about beauty, normalcy, and strength. What makes her story especially powerful is how visible her condition is. Harlequin ichthyosis doesn't allow for blending in, it forces people to confront something unfamiliar, and Hunter has turned that into a mission. She's used her platform to advocate for others with rare disorders, to educate, and to push past limits that were once placed on her at birth. The condition may be 1 in a million, but her courage, that's entirely her own. Wim Hof isn't just a man who likes the cold, he thrives in it. While most people start shivering at the thought of an ice bath, Wim sits calmly in freezing water for over an hour. He's climbed part of Mount Everest wearing only shorts. He's run a half marathon barefoot in the snow. People started calling him the Iceman, but what's really astonishing is this. He can consciously control his body temperature using just his breath and focus. For years, scientists thought this kind of thing was impossible. The autonomic nervous system, the part of your body that controls breathing, heart rate, and temperature, was supposed to be completely automatic. But Wim proved otherwise. Through a mix of cold exposure, controlled breathing, and meditation, he trained his body to do what textbooks said it couldn't. In lab tests, he's shown the ability to boost his immune response and regulate stress hormones at will. What's even more mind-blowing is that he's not just some outlier. Wim claims anyone can learn his method. In fact, multiple studies have confirmed that people trained in his breathing techniques can influence their own immune systems in ways researchers didn't expect. Some volunteers were able to fend off symptoms from injected bacteria, all through controlled breathing and mental focus. Wim Hof's story sounds like something out of a superhero origin movie, but it's all very real. He's been studied by universities, featured in documentaries, and challenged by skeptics only to prove them wrong time and again. His abilities don't come from magic or mutation. They come from training, discipline, and pushing human biology to its edges. And in doing so, he's cracked open the idea that maybe, just maybe, we all have more control over our bodies than we think. Paul Kern's story sounds like something out of a science fiction novel. A man wounded in war who never sleeps again. Not for days, not for weeks, but for decades. According to records from the early 20th century, Paul was a Hungarian soldier who took a bullet to the head during World War I. It passed through his frontal lobe, and from that moment on, he claimed he no longer needed sleep. Not just that, he physically couldn't sleep, even if he tried. Doctors were baffled. Sleep is one of the most essential processes in the human body. Go without it for even 48 hours and your brain starts to lose grip. But Paul functioned. He worked, read, socialized, and kept a daily routine, all on zero shut-eye. For over 40 years he stayed awake, often sitting in bed resting his eyes for a few minutes at a time, but never actually drifting off. No REM cycles, no dreams, no unconsciousness. His body just kept going. Neurologists studied him, trying to figure out how his mind could handle this. Some speculated that tiny fragments of rest were happening without him realizing, short bursts of micro-sleep. Others thought his brain had rewired itself entirely, finding a way to bypass the need for the typical sleep cycle, but no one had ever seen a case like it. Kern became a medical mystery, a living contradiction of everything we thought we knew about sleep. He didn't brag about it. By all accounts, Paul led a quiet life, choosing to spend his extra hours reading or writing letters. There were no grand claims, no attempts at fame, just a man whose brain simply didn't switch off. And while his case remains one of the strangest in sleep research history, it leaves one haunting question behind. How much of what we think is required by the body is just a habit waiting to be challenged? Stephen Pete grew up in a small town in the United States, but from early childhood, it was clear that something about him didn't match other kids. He never cried from scrapes or falls, never winced when he got hurt. At first, people thought he was just tough. Then came the moment he fractured his leg, badly, and didn't even notice. That's when doctors realized Stephen had congenital insensitivity to pain. His nerves were wired in such a way that his body simply didn't register pain at all. It might sound like a superpower, but for Stephen, it came with real challenges. Pain isn't just something annoying, it's a warning system. Without it, he had no natural way of knowing when something was wrong. As a child, he unknowingly broke bones, chewed his tongue while sleeping, and walked around with injuries that would leave others doubled over. His parents had to keep a close eye on him constantly. Not because he was sick, but because his body was silent about danger. Stephen has lived most of his life adapting to what his body doesn't tell him. He does regular self-checks, listens to his body in other ways, and watches carefully for swelling or limping. What makes his story remarkable isn't just the condition, it's the way he's turned it into a mission. He's spoken publicly about his experience, helping spread awareness of a condition so rare, most doctors will never see a case like it. What if your body wasn't missing pain but instead was nearly immune to injury? That's what doctors found in an unnamed woman in the US with a mutation in the LRP5 gene. Her bones were unbelievably dense, up to 8 times the average thickness. She'd never broken a single bone, not once. Even in accidents that would have left others in casts, she walked away without a scratch. She didn't even know she was unusual until she had a bone scan in adulthood. That's when doctors noticed something bizarre. Her bones looked like stone. Later tests confirmed the LRP5 mutation, which alters the way the body builds and maintains bone tissue. It doesn't just make bones stronger, it makes them incredibly resistant to breaking. In medical circles, she became known as a real-life X-ray outlier. What's even more intriguing is that her case could help millions. Scientists are now studying this mutation as a potential key to treating osteoporosis and other bone diseases. Imagine being able to strengthen fragile bones not with implants or medicine, but by mimicking this natural, super-dense framework. She lives a mostly quiet life, far from headlines. But her skeleton might be the toughest in modern medical history, and no one knew until it showed up on a scan. She isn't indestructible, of course, but her condition challenges what we think is biologically possible. Just like so many others on this list, she's a living example that the human body still holds mysteries we've barely begun to understand. That's about it. Which of these people impressed you the most? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.